Ladies and gentlemen, when you begin to truly value your time and energy, everything in your life starts to shift. It's not just about managing your schedule or setting boundaries. It's about recognizing, on a deep level, that your attention, your presence, and your emotional availability are not limitless resources. They are gifts. Too often, people give these gifts away far too easily, hoping that someone will finally see their worth because of how much they give, how patient they are, or how available they make themselves. But the truth is, when you give your time too freely, when you pour your energy into someone who hasn't yet earned it, you unintentionally communicate that what you're offering isn't that valuable. That's not because your time or energy isn't valuable. It's because people are wired to respect what they have to earn. And when something is always available, always saying yes, always responding instantly, it becomes easy to take for granted. Valuing your time means that you no longer drop everything to respond to a text or rearrange your entire day to accommodate someone who hasn't even confirmed plans with you. It means recognizing when someone is breadcrumbing you, giving you just enough attention to keep you hooked but not enough to build anything real, and choosing not to play that game. When you value your energy, you become mindful of what you say yes to. You start asking yourself, does this interaction nourish me, or does it drain me? Is this person contributing to my peace, or are they just using me as a convenience? It's not about being selfish. It's about being self-respecting. When you respect your own energy, you start to attract people who respect it too, and something interesting happens when you begin to embody this mindset. You become less reactive and more selective. You become the person who is not waiting by the phone, not obsessively wondering why he hasn't texted back, not anxiously guessing your worth based on his behavior. Instead, you're focused on your own goals, your own joy, your own growth. You create a life that feels full, regardless of who's in it. And when a man sees that, when he sees that your world doesn't revolve around him, that you're not waiting to be chosen, but that you've already chosen yourself, he pays attention. He becomes curious. He wants to be part of that fullness, that confidence, that self-contained power. Not because you were trying to make him chase you, but because your life was already moving, and he realizes he needs to catch up if he wants to be part of it. When you value your time and energy, you change the entire dynamic of your relationships. You stop being the person who overextends and starts being the person who chooses wisely. That shift, subtle but powerful, is what creates genuine attraction. Not a desperate chase for attention, but a healthy pursuit of connection. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less, but making it count. And that is what makes you unforgettable. Prioritizing your own joy is not selfish. It's essential. Too often, people fall into the trap of making their happiness dependent on someone else's actions, approval, or presence. They wait for a text, a compliment, a plan, a signal that they matter to someone else before allowing themselves to feel good. But when your emotional well-being hinges on external validation, you're no longer in control of your life. You're handing over the keys to someone else, hoping they'll drive you to happiness. The truth is, joy is an inside job. When you start treating it like a personal responsibility instead of a reward someone else has to give you, you change the entire rhythm of your relationships and your life. Making your joy a priority means learning what makes you feel alive and then weaving those things into your everyday routine. It means investing in the experiences, hobbies, friendships, and environments that lift your spirit, rather than waiting for someone to invite you into their world. You don't have to wait to be in a relationship to travel, take that class, explore your creativity, or deepen your social circle. You don't need permission to enjoy your own company, laugh out loud at something silly, or pursue a passion that makes you feel purposeful. When you live this way, fully and unapologetically, it shows. People notice when you carry joy with you, when your energy is light, confident, and at peace. It draws others in, not because you're trying to impress them, but because it's magnetic to see someone living from a place of self-sourced happiness. When a woman makes her own joy the foundation of her life, She becomes less reactive to someone else's moods or interest levels. She's no longer sitting around hoping he'll finally plan something exciting or say the right words to make her day. She's already having a good day because she built it herself. That kind of self-reliance is not only powerful, it's attractive. It signals that you are whole, that your life isn't a waiting room for love, but a vibrant, active journey that someone would be lucky to join. You're not living halfway, saving the best parts of yourself for a man to unlock. You've already unlocked them. And in doing so, you create a standard. You're not going to shrink to fit into someone's world when you've built one so rich on your own. By prioritizing your own joy, you communicate to everyone around you that you are not looking to be completed, rescued, or filled. You're already full. The right person won't feel burdened by that. They'll feel inspired, because the joy you create within yourself becomes the emotional foundation you stand on, not the emotional debt someone else is expected to pay. And when that kind of person enters your life, they won't need to fix or fill anything. They'll just want to be part of what's already working beautifully. Dropping the need for validation is one of the most liberating decisions you can make in your personal life and relationships. It means breaking free from the constant cycle of needing someone else to tell you that you're enough, attractive enough, smart enough, interesting enough, or worthy of love. That need, though deeply human, can become a trap if left unchecked. It turns your sense of self-worth into something fragile, something that fluctuates based on how someone treats you that day. One minute you feel confident because he texted first. The next minute you feel invisible because he didn't reply. Living like that is exhausting. It places your emotional state in the hands of someone who may not even understand their own feelings, let alone have the ability to nurture yours. When you let go of the need for validation, you begin to see yourself through your own eyes instead of someone else's. You stop asking, "Am I good enough for him?" and start asking, "Is he good enough for me?" It's a shift in perspective that changes everything. You no longer seek approval through overgiving, over-explaining, or overperforming. You don't have to prove your worth with how much you care or how much you tolerate. Instead, you move through life with the quiet strength of someone who knows they have value regardless of who notices it. This doesn't mean you never appreciate compliments or encouragement. It means you no longer depend on them to feel secure in who you are. You begin to validate yourself through your actions, your growth, and your integrity. When you follow through on your goals, honor your boundaries, and act in alignment with your values, you create a deep inner trust. That trust becomes your foundation. It tells you that you're on the right path, whether or not anyone claps for you along the way. You begin to find peace in your own company and pride in your own efforts. That kind of internal validation doesn't scream or seek attention. It just is, and that quiet confidence is powerful. People are drawn to those who are self-assured, not because they're loud about it, but because there's something undeniably grounded about them. When you don't need someone to constantly reassure you, you become more emotionally available in a healthy way. You give love from a full heart, not an empty one hoping to be filled. You listen without the hidden agenda of needing to be liked. You show up as you are, not as a version of yourself designed to impress. And ironically, that's when people are most impressed, when they can feel that you're not performing. Releasing the need for validation isn't about becoming cold or closed off. It's about becoming so rooted in your own worth that outside opinions lose their power to define you. You still hear them, but you don't let them shape you. You move forward, not because someone gave you permission, but because you decided you're already enough. And that, in itself, is everything. Stop playing games, because real connection doesn't need tricks, tests, or manipulation to survive. When you find yourself strategizing your every move, holding back texts to appear uninterested, dropping hints instead of speaking your truth, or pretending you're fine when you're not protecting yourself. You're preventing real intimacy. Playing games may give you a sense of control in the short term, but in the long run it attracts people who are also playing, People who are unsure, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable. That's not a relationship. That's a power struggle dressed up as romance. The truth is, when you have to manipulate to keep someone interested, they're not really interested in you. They're interested in the version of you that's performing, posturing, and pulling strings. Letting go of games means stepping into authenticity. It means being brave enough to communicate clearly, to express interest without shame, and to set boundaries without fear of rejection. It means asking questions that matter instead of testing someone to see if they'll read your mind. You don't need to pretend you're too busy to reply or act like you don't care just to appear cool. That kind of behavior only creates confusion, and confusion rarely leads to trust. You deserve a relationship that is built on mutual understanding and emotional safety, not one that's based on who can care less or who can wait longer to respond. When you stop playing games, you start filtering out the people who aren't looking for anything real. You make space for those who are emotionally mature enough to match your honesty. There's nothing weak about showing someone you're interested. There's nothing wrong with having standards, expressing feelings, or asking where things are headed. In fact, that clarity is what helps you avoid wasting time. People often fear being too much or too available, but the right person won't be scared off by your clarity. They'll be relieved by it. They'll see it as a sign of emotional intelligence and confidence, not desperation. Games are rooted in fear. The fear of being rejected, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of losing someone. But those fears only hold power when you believe that your worth depends on someone else choosing you. When you know who you are and what you bring to the table, you no longer feel the need to manipulate outcomes. You trust that what's meant for you won't need chasing, testing, or tricking. It will respond to truth, to warmth, to sincerity. People don't fall in love with games. They fall in love with consistency, kindness, honesty, and real emotional presence. When you show up without the masks and defenses, when you lead with heart instead of ego, you attract people who are doing the same. And in that space, something meaningful can grow. Something that doesn't require strategy, but simply requires you to be exactly who you are. That's not a game, that's real, and it's worth everything. Setting a standard, not a trap, is about knowing your worth and making that worth clear through your actions, boundaries, and expectations, without resorting to manipulation. It means choosing to lead with clarity instead of confusion, with strength instead of games. Many people fall into the habit of testing others or withholding information to see how much someone is willing to guess or chase. That's not setting a standard, that's setting a trap. A trap is when you wait for someone to prove themselves without ever telling them what's required. It's when you hope they'll read your mind, pass your unspoken tests, or figure out your boundaries only after they've crossed them. But healthy love doesn't grow in ambiguity. It thrives in environments where communication is honest and expectations are transparent. When you set a standard, you are saying, "This is how I deserve to be treated," and then you uphold that standard through your behavior. You don't lower it to keep someone around. You don't bend it every time someone offers excuses instead of effort. A true standard is not something you impose on others. It's something you live by yourself. It's reflected in the way you say no to things that don't serve you, in the way you walk away from relationships that are inconsistent or unclear, and in the way you show others how to treat you by how you treat yourself. You don't need to punish people into treating you well. You simply need to make it clear that anything less than respect, honesty, and effort is not welcome in your life. A trap, on the other hand, is reactive. It's rooted in fear and insecurity, in trying to control how someone behaves rather than allowing their true character to reveal itself. It's when you pretend not to care just to see if they'll chase you. It's when you give someone just enough of your attention to keep them guessing, but not enough to form a real connection. While it might produce short-term attention, it won't produce long-term commitment. People can feel when they're being manipulated, and the ones who are serious, who are emotionally healthy, will walk away from those games, not because they weren't interested, but because they value authenticity over ambiguity. Standards are empowering because they free you from needing to convince anyone of your worth. You're not auditioning. You're not trying to prove that you're good enough to be loved. You're simply being yourself and allowing those who align with your values to move closer. And when someone does meet your standard, it feels effortless. Not because relationships don't take work, but because the foundation is honest and mutual from the start. You're not luring someone in and hoping they'll change. You're attracting someone who already respects what you bring to the table. That kind of connection is sustainable. It's not built on control or performance. It's built on truth. And that's how you create something real. By setting a standard and living by it, no matter who chooses to stay or walk away. He'll chase what he can't control, but wants to earn, because that's the energy that challenges him, inspires him, and makes him step into intention. When a woman moves through the world with self-possession, when her presence says, "I am whole with or without you," it sends a powerful message. She's not closed off, but she's not waiting to be rescued either. She's open but discerning. She's kind but not performative. She's not throwing out bait hoping to hook attention. She simply is, and that is, holds gravity. That's the kind of energy that shifts the dynamic from pursuit based on availability to pursuit based on value. Because something that's always available, always responsive, always bending over backward to please, no matter how well intentioned, eventually stops being special. But when your energy says, "I'm not here to be controlled or managed, I'm here to be met," that's when the chase becomes meaningful. This doesn't mean being distant or cold. It's not about playing hard to get, but about being hard to forget. There's a huge difference between holding to manipulate and holding because you're intentional about where your energy goes. Men, like anyone, value what they work for not because of ego, but because effort creates investment. When he has to rise to meet your emotional maturity, your standards, and your pace, he begins to evaluate himself more carefully. He starts thinking about what kind of man he needs to be to walk beside you, rather than what tricks he can play to keep your attention. He realizes that your affection is not something he's entitled to. It's something he earns through consistency, presence, and respect. Energy that can't be controlled, but invites effort, is captivating. It's not volatile, and it's not stubborn. It's steady. It knows when to engage and when to pull back. It isn't afraid to walk away from what doesn't feel right. That's what makes it powerful. When a man senses that you won't be moved by breadcrumbs or flattery, but only by sincerity and real action, it activates a different level of interest. He stops thinking about how to win and starts thinking about how to contribute. He stops strategizing and starts showing up, because he understands that you're not moved by attention. You're moved by intention. You don't have to overexplain or overextend to show that you're worthy of being chosen. You show it in how you move, how you honor your time, how you don't chase validation or give energy to what isn't reciprocated. That energy can't be controlled, and that's exactly what makes it irresistible. It keeps its dignity, it stays centered, and it creates a space where the right kind of man will want to step up, not because you asked him to, but because he knows that to be close to you, he has to bring his best self. And that's when pursuit becomes something beautiful, not a game, not a chase for dominance, but a mutual recognition of value.